Hi, and welcome to our video. Thank you for joining us in our discussion of the GIT. In the previous two videos, we discussed the anatomy of the GIT, and then we took a brief look at the esophagus, its histology, and how this is adapted to suit the function of the esophagus. In this video, we shall seek to discuss the other organs of the GIT, their function, and how their histology is adapted to help them fulfill their function. At the gastroesophageal junction, the esophagus empties into the stomach. The stomach is the organ into which the esophagus empties, and it extends the stomach from the esophagus to the duodenum of the small intestine, at least to the pyloric sphincter, which leads into the duodenum of the small intestine. But what is it that the stomach does? Well, the functions of the stomach are numerous. The stomach is responsible for churning the food and initiating the process of digestion, as well as for participating in immune defense. If we look at the anatomy of the stomach has four regions: the cardia, the fundus, the body, and the pylorus. If we then zoom into the stomach and look at it histologically, we will notice that firstly, it still has the same four layers as the esophagus. The mucosa undergoes massive changes when we look at the stomach after having looked at the esophagus. One of these changes is that the epithelial layer of the stomach is a columnar epithelium, whereas the epithelial layer of the esophagus is a stratified squamous epithelial layer. Even though the segments of the stomach make up a part of the same organ, they still have slight differences in histology. And although these differences are important, today we will take a look at the fundal region of the stomach. Like the cardia of the stomach, the fundal region of the stomach has glands in its mucosa, and these glands are responsible for producing gastric juices. There are millions of these glands, and these glands empty into millions of gastric pits or foveola. Now, the question on your mind might be, what is a gastric pit or a foveola? The answer to that is that a gastric pit or foveola is one of the regions of the gland. Wait, what? Okay, let's rewind. So the stomach has a fundus, and the fundus has gastric glands. These gastric glands are located within the mucosal layer extending from the surface epithelial layer through the lamina propria, where they have coiled ends. These glands also have three regions: the pit or foveola, which is at the surface, the neck, which is totally tubular, yes, that is a Stranger Things reference, and the body, which is coiled and located in the lamina propria. Well, speaking of Stranger Things, you might as well start thinking of the stomach as Hawkins. The glands from which gastric juices are secreted might as well be all the places in Hawkins from which the monsters escape. The pit, or the foveola, of the gland is the laboratory which leads to the upside down, the neck of the gland as the elevator which they use to get to the upside down, season 1 and season 2, and the body is of the gland which is coiled in the lamina propria, is like Castle Byers in the upside down, I guess. Stranger Things break over. Now back to histology. The gland, which we have just likened to the Stranger Things location in Hawkins, is lined by many cells. The pit is lined by surface mucous epithelium, the neck by mucous neck cells, points for the name simplicity, The chief cells, parietal cells, stem cells, and so-called endocrine cells are found in the rest of the glands. What do these cells do? The mucous neck cells produce mucus, and so do the surface mucous epithelial cells. The mucus which is produced by these mucus cells forms a part of the protective barrier which protects the underlying tissue from harm by the gastric juices which are produced by the stomach, as well as from invasion by microorganisms. The chief cells, think Jim Hopper, chief of police in Hawkins, are also known as the peptic cells, and they produce pepsinogen, which is a precursor of pepsin. Pepsin is a proteolytic enzyme whose functions include contributing to protein digestion. The next cells are the parietal cells. Think of the parietal cells kind of like 11 because both of them have a lot of power. Okay, last Stranger Things mention. In the gastric glands, these parietal cells secrete hydrochloric acid under the influence of gastrin and acetylcholine. Parietal cells also produce intrinsic factor. Intrinsic factor assists in vitamin B12 absorption. While hydrochloric acid has numerous functions, including participating and being a line of defense against microorganisms which are potentially harmful to you. The next group of cells which are important are the gastroendocrine cells. In the fundus of the stomach, these gastroendocrine cells secrete ghrelin. Ghrelin stimulates hunger during periods of fasting. They are to blame for your hunger, and thus complete a very simplistic summary. The other layers of the stomach wall are the submucosa, the muscularis, and the adventitia. The submucosa of the stomach is typical of the GIT. However, it is special because together with the mucosal layer, the submucosal layer forms ruga, which expand and disappear with filling of the stomach. The muscularis layer of the stomach is also pretty unique because instead of the two typical layers of the GIT, the muscularis layer of the stomach has three indistinct layers. They are an inner circular, an oblique, and a longitudinal layer. And I suppose that this special orientation of the muscularis layer is very helpful in helping the stomach perform the function of churning the food, whilst the sphincters aid the stomach do this without the food spilling over into the esophagus or into the duodenum before the time for that to happen has arrived. Okay, that was long. And breathe. Let's do a quick recap. So what do we know so far? We know so far that the GIT is a series of consecutive tubes which have been adapted to perform the important functions of the digestive system, which are food digestion, absorption, immune defense, and waste excretion, amongst many others. We also know that the GIT consists of the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, and the rectum, and that the walls of these organs are similar in composition, consisting mainly of four layers: the mucosa, the submucosa, the muscularis, and the adventitia or serosa. Although they share a generalized structure of layers, these different layers are varied amongst the different organs, suited specifically for the function of those organs. We also know that the stomach refers to a single organ of the GIT, and that this organ is responsible for churning our food, adding acid to it, as well as secreting factors, including ghrelin and gastrin. and that it has a very unique and special muscularis layer which helps it perform its function. These keep on getting longer, huh? Well, stick a fork in me. I am done. Thank you very much for joining us in our video, and I hope you will join us in the next one. Bye.